All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Maker Faire Orlando. This is my first year here, but this is their 11th year running. I am Jen Schachter. I am going to be your MC here for the main stage for a lot of the weekend. I'm also going to be on some of the panels, so you'll see me around. But we want to start off by thanking Universal Creative for sponsoring the main stage this weekend. They're also here to kick it off. Yes, please give a big round of applause. Universal Creative. They are also here to kick off the weekend with a panel on theme park makers. So we have representatives from a lot of your favorite theme park attractions here to talk about what they make and answer questions from you all. So I'd like to welcome the moderator for this panel, who is the Creative Assistant Director and Executive Producer, Chris Frisella. Chris just finished the Universal Beijing Resort, and he is going to moderate this panel today for all of you.
Theme park, but I can't turn on a microphone. So, pretty exciting. Good afternoon or good early, late morning, whatever it is here, 11 o'clock, right? So welcome to the Orlando Maker Faire. Thank you, Jen, for the fine introduction. I appreciate it. I'm going to be your host, or try to be your host for the next hour, as we talk about theme park makers, right? You guys are all makers. Well, we're makers also. A lot of the great things about this industry is that all of your favorite things, or a lot of your favorite things from your favorite attractions, were originally conceived in somebody's basement or garage, an idea that they saw through, right? And then now it entertains millions of people around the world. So we are going to share a little bit of that with you today. So I work for Universal Creative. That's the division of Universal Parks, Universal Destinations and Experiences. Excuse me, it's a new name, trying that one out. Universal Destinations and Experience that designs all of the experiences, attractions, hotels, and parks around the world. And just so happy to be here with you guys today. And I've had an incredible career in the themed entertainment industry. You know, I've worked for Six Flags Parks, Disney, and Universal. And the best part of what I do is the incredible people that I get to work with. I've had the opportunity to work alongside some of the best creatives in the world. And today we're going to meet and learn about a lot of them and what they do. So I'm going to be joined by some incredible industry talent. So let's just start bringing them out here. Enough of me kind of trying to work through this, right? So first of all, I want to introduce Andy Maluzzi. He's a longtime Maker Faire Orlando crew member. He's from the also shows First Robotics. He's Robot Andy, right? And he works for WDI also as a senior ride control system engineer, where his latest project is for Disney's Animal Kingdom. Right? So everybody say hi to Andy. Great, thanks, Andy. All right, next is Bill Butler. Bill Butler is Vice President of Creative Development with Garner, Holt Productions. So Garner, Holt is where they specialize in animatronics, special effects, and show systems, and a whole lot more, right? They've been in the industry for a long, long time, and thanks for being here, Bill. Appreciate it. Next is Scott Harkless. Scott is the Chief Innovation Officer at Alcorn McBride. So Scott and his team, they use their talents to bring electronic design to life, right? And they've used those talents to create some of the world's most popular theme park attractions. So we're glad to have you here, Scott, as well. Thank you. And finally, one of my fellow creatives from Universal Creative, an art director, Mr. Brandon Clyley, who just this week was announced as one of Blue Loop's top 50 theme park influencers. Congrats, Brandon. Congrats. Yeah, no, don't worry about having to deliver anything, no problem. So, okay. So this is a great team, right? Pretty prestigious group of folks here. And look at this audience. Pretty exciting. All right, so guys, I only gave a tiny bit, of information about each one of you, who you are. So why don't you take a moment here And we'll start with you, Andy. And just talk to us a little bit about, you know, what you do and what you're working on.
Yeah, so my name is Andy Maluzzi, and there we go. And I'm a senior ride control systems engineer for Walt Disney Imagineering, and that means that I handle a lot of the process of how the ride works. The conveyance, the ride vehicle you get in, how that's controlled, how that's designed and built. That usually falls into my domain. But sort of a characteristic of this industry is we have our jobs on paper, but we tend to do just a whole bunch of different things. So along the way, I sort of founded a creative engineering group within Disney that works to build enrichment for our animals at Disney's Animal Kingdom. And that has been a fantastic ride for the last 6 years. And I'll share a little bit more about that later.
I'm Bill Butler, as Chris mentioned, Vice President of Creative Development at Garner, Holt Productions. We're the world's largest animatronics designer and builder. We've done hundreds of characters for leading theme parks all over the world, Disney and Universal both, and many, many hundreds of Chuck E. Cheese figures too. So we apologize to all you parents out there for that. We're in the midst of lots of fun development with our clients all over the world, including something really fun that opens this coming Friday at Disneyland, the new Adventureland Treehouse, which we worked with them to restore, and we created a brand new water wheel for that, so we're bringing back our big water wheel effect to that park. So lots of fun and exciting things going on.
Ironically, I'm the one that's in AV, and I forgot to turn my mic on. So, my name's Scott. I work for Alcorn, McBride, and not many people have heard of us. We're a small company, about 20 people, but we're an electronics manufacturer for the industry. We specialize in making systems called show control systems and audio-visual systems that do all these visual and audio effects around you when you're on the ride, lighting control and stuff like that. So, we work on all the major attractions. I can't say because NDAs, you guys know what I'm talking about. But I guarantee you've seen our equipment in action if you've ridden a major theme park ride. So we make electronics. We do it for real. We're here in Orlando. So we got half our staff is engineers, electrical engineers. Most of them are software. Yeah. So
I didn't know we got to bring a prop, so I didn't. I almost grabbed the roll of paper towels in the back. This is so far above my pay grade. Hi everybody, my name is Brendan Clyley. I am an art director at Universal Creative. I get to work with this guy every day. I get to give that guy a hard time every other day. But yeah, I started out in the set decoration and prop department at Imagineering. I was there for almost 10 years, and then in 16 I hopped on over to Universal and worked on Beijing, and then am now doing a lot of things we can't talk about on Epic Universe, but you're going to love all of them, I can promise you that.
Adora, are we allowed to do a quick run through of the entire park? Epic? No? Okay. Wasn't very fair of me to do that to her. Okay, just kidding. All right, so I'm sure that a lot of you out there are curious about how we got our starts in being entertainment. Right? So each of us come to it through a different path. So why don't we just talk a little bit, if you guys don't mind, about how each of you got your start. So Randy, you want to take that one? Start.
Yeah, so mine is a weird right place, right time situation. So yeah, I started at Imagineering running the print shop. So I ran the large format printers that printed all of the presentation boards for the company. It was a very thankless and forgetful job. Nobody even knew I was in the building, but I knew every single thing Walt Disney Imagineering was doing, which was great. So it was a lot to learn. You learned what worked, you learned what didn't work, and it was wonderful. I did that for 2 years, and then I just said, hey, if you need anything, give me a call, I'll come in. Did that for a little bit, and then one day they called and said, do you want to do props? And I said, sure. And 8 years later, I was still doing props. But props is a great job because by the time it comes to us, the attraction and the experience is happening. It is getting built, it is happening. So I'm part of a very small group at Imagineering that has worked on over 40 attractions worldwide in 8 years, which is a ton of stuff. 1 year I had 14 attractions that opened worldwide. 3 of them opened on the same day. So that was fun. One of them was Matterhorn with Garner when we put in the new giant abominable snowmen. But yeah, so then it just roped in from there, and then obviously started with you on Epic and Beijing doing props, and then have ramped up to there to now doing varieties of hats.
So for me, I'm not ashamed to admit that I ended up in this industry by accident. I was going to school for electronic engineering. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, so I'd been exposed to SeaWorld back when there was a SeaWorld in Ohio, and Cedar Fair at Jogga Lake, no more, Cedar Point. So I knew all about that stuff and loved it, but what I did is I worked at a science museum called COSI, Columbus, Ohio, while I was in school, and it exposed me to kind of the theme side of things, and also exposed me to the equipment that Alcorn McBride makes. So when I graduated, my boss kind of plugged me. We were having a little tech support issue with Alcorn McBride, and my boss plugged me and said, I don't want to see little Scott end up working for an insurance company, so you guys got anything? And it turned out that they did, and I just started off as a junior, design engineer, bringing up circuit boards and programming. So, but I've been there for 21 years now, and so things tend to evolve and change over that time. So yeah, now I'm more on the customer-facing side, still doing engineering at a higher level, but that's how I got here.
So I suspect my story is like a lot of yours out there. How many want to work in theme parks when you grow up, when you get older? Yeah, me too. That's all I ever wanted to do when I was growing up. And so I tried to learn everything I possibly could about every aspect of it. Walt Disney once referred to the Imagineers, and Ray Bradbury echoed this, that they were a Renaissance people, and that's really quite true. You need to be able to do all sorts of different things, talk about different hats, fingers in all sorts of different pies. So I just tried to learn everything I possibly could about design and architecture, culture, costumes, animation, mechanical, figure finishing, painting, writing, all that. And early on was able to have a correspondence with Marty Sklar, who used to lead WDI, and who was always a great mentor to young people who were interested in doing this thing and taking it seriously, not just as a fan of the parks, but how can you contribute to it. So started building things when I was in high school and in college, learning how to do latex masks and simple mechanisms and things like that. And heard about my company, Garner Holt Productions, where the founder, Garner, our founder, was 16 when he founded our company, still in high school, and was very much, before makers were a thing, was definitely a proto maker, building all the things in his garage that sort of led to what we do. So I started working for our company when I was in college, and was fortunate to work on the Finding Nemo submarine voyage at Disneyland, Monsters Inc., Hide and Go Seek at Tokyo Disneyland, and lots of other attractions here and there. And been there close to 18 years now, and been fortunate to work on many, many attractions all over the world, getting to use a lot of that knowledge that I picked up. I animate almost all of our animated characters. I think I can safely say I've animated more characters for your company than any other person. Including spending an ungodly amount of time in Beijing on various things just recently. So it's all about learning, to me, the diversity of things that you can come up with, that you're interested in, but also that you can contribute to largely on a team and not just be pigeonholed.
For me, it started off sort of interesting. I think there's maybe a thing about Northeastern Ohio. I'm from the Cleveland area. But in high school, I read a book called The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. And if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It's not a difficult read, but it's about a gentleman who was a professor at Carnegie Mellon University, and he was diagnosed with cancer. And he was going to retire from Carnegie Mellon to spend the last days of his life with his family. But when you leave Carnegie Mellon, the last thing you do is you give a lecture. It's their tradition. And he gave this lecture called Really Achieving Your Childhood Dreams. And that got me to pause and think, what do I want to do in life? And I was fortunate. I grew up coming to Central Florida from Ohio to go to the theme parks. I've been to Universal and Disney countless times. I got to go to Disneyland growing up. Like I certainly visited Jogga Lake, SeaWorld, Cedar Point, Kings Island, multiple Six Flags. Like I went to these as fun, but I never thought about it as a career. I knew I wanted to be an engineer. My mother said that when I was like 3 years old building with Lego. She's like, Andy, you're going to be an engineer. my response to her was, but Mom, I don't want to drive a train. That was my idea of what engineer was. So, I knew I was going to be an engineer. That just sort of resonated with me. But I read this book, and it made me stop and think what I want to do. And I made a list of goals, as like any 16, 17-year-old kid would do. Work at Xbox. Yep, that was on the list. Launch something into space. That was on the list. And in the last lecture, Randy talks about getting his PhD and becoming a Disney Imagineer, working on the Aladdin project at Disney Quest. And I went, that sounded like a ton of fun. I think it'd be great to be an Imagineer. He also highlights in the book, and there's a YouTube video as well of his actual lecture, that it's probably harder to become a Disney Imagineer than to do any of those other things. And he talks about getting his PhD, sending his resume off to the Walt Disney Company, and getting back a letter saying, sorry, we don't have a role for you. And his comment was, this was a company famous for people sweeping the streets, and you don't have a job for a PhD. So I took his advice. I started off, I worked at Xbox, got to work on the Xbox One. I left that, went to grad school at the University of Florida, and did get to launch an experiment to the International Space Station. It's still orbiting. And then along the way, that passion for Lego paid dividends. I got involved with the Lego group and got to help be the community talking about the Lego Mindstorms EV3. Remember, that engineer was going to last the whole time. And through that, I met Dean Kamen, and he got me involved quite heavily in FIRST Robotics. So by the time I got to grad school in Florida, I had discovered my passion of FIRST Robotics and helping other students become engineers and do that. And it turns out that Disney is a major sponsor of FIRST Robotics, so is Universal, so is a lot of companies. But through that network here in Central Florida, when I was graduating with my PhD, I sort of went like, hey, why don't we give it a try? Maybe not the cold email. I don't really want to get that rejection letter, but let's see if there's any openings. And sure enough, I got into Disney as a systems engineer for the modeling, simulation, and training tools team, and then moved over to Imagineering and ride control about 2 years ago, although I had been working on those projects my entire career, and I worked on Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World on Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. I worked on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway here at Walt Disney World, as well as Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. And then now I'm joining the Paris portfolio for Disney. So it's been quite the career that, again, started off from that little bit of advice of really trying to achieve my childhood dreams.
Yeah, that's a great message, right? It's a great message for all of us, right? Keep your dreams in front of you and don't give up. I have never failed to achieve any single dream that I didn't give up on. So don't give up. Okay, so over the decades in this industry, right, we see trends come and go. VR, those kinds of things. Right now we're dealing with a lot of AI, machine learning, things like that. So just kind of among you guys, what do you see as kind of the upcoming drivers of experiences for our guests, things that might be able to enhance the products that we create for them? So why don't we start with Alcorn McBride? Go ahead, take us through what you think.
My mic turned off again. Sorry. Battery must be low. So yeah, trends. I think one of the cool things about the whole AI movement here is I think it's going to make us very productive. It's going to make the humans we have very productive in certain areas, especially the tedious tasks or creating schematics and stuff like that. I also think it enables people who don't have certain skills but are very creative to be able to actually visualize their ideas. You might not be a good artist, but if you have this great idea and you know how to use AI, you can have it create the art for you. So I think it's going to be very cool. When it comes to how that's applied to theme parks, I could see that kind of bleeding in, but for me personally, I think the number one thing we're trying to achieve in theme parks is making people feel like they're in an immersive experience. And I would actually add that we want them to be in an immersive social experience. They're going there with family, friends, things like that. So anything we can do to make that part of the immersion and to have them enjoy the people that they're with, I think that's really the ultimate goal.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone else?
I'm going to touch on that too. Obviously, animatronics are a big part of that illusion, and especially things that have a sense of interactivity to them, or a sense of how can this little thing be responding to me that feels like it's mechanical, it's not really real. And just blurring that line between, we created an animatronic Grogu with a collectibles company called EFX Collectibles a few years ago that has an interactivity to it that is ersatz, it's an illusion, but when you make eye contact with the character and it feels like it's really in the space with you and it really is interacting with you, that's a sense of magic that I think we all strive for there, is that pure immersion, that pure illusion, that something impossible is actually taking place in front of you.
And some of those tools we just talked about, AI, machine learning, things like that, could certainly help enhance those kinds of abilities, or that sense of interaction between the audience and those figures. Great. Anyone else? No? Okay. All right. So, Mr. Bellucci, you mentioned several of the projects that you've worked on. So, when you think back on your career, what would you say is your favorite attraction that you worked on?
So my favorite attraction is maybe not one for humans, and it's one that sort of happened accidentally. When I started at Disney, my manager comes to me one day saying, hey, there's this sort of maker project that we kind of want to do. It's not funded, you kind of have to do it on your own time, we'll have to figure out, stuff, but it seems up your alley. And what that ended up being was engaging our enrichment development group at Disney's Animal Kingdom. So you might not realize Disney's Animal Kingdom is like one of the premier animal care facilities in the world. We spend a lot of time and effort not only making sure that guests have an incredible experience there, but we really genuinely care a lot about our animals and taking care of them. And part of that is developing enrichment, helping them to exhibit natural behaviors, helping them to grow and mature, and just like you would expect them to be in the wild. So this group started, and they wanted to start integrating some technology. And we started off with a project called Hungry Hungry Hornbills. Now, if you've ever seen a hornbill, you might have seen Casanova over at Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge. If not, definitely go over there and try and find them. They're not the prettiest of creature, but they're a lot of fun. They run around, and they're just like having a great day every day. They also exhibit this hunter-gatherer behavior, and we wanted to get him to exhibit that in our habitat. So we embedded RFID tags and pine cones, hid those out there, and then we had a themed stump that you could deposit them in. Then I helped write some of the smarts on the inside and design the electronics to read those RFID tags, and if we saw one, we would then disperse, because he would sometimes get real pine cones, we would then disperse a clay turtle, which they would actually naturally hunt in the wild and actually eat. So we had a treat inside this clay turtle, which was really cool. And that started this great collaboration over the last 6 years now between Walt Disney Imagineering, Walt Disney World Engineering, all sorts of them, Global Engineering Technology and all that, Worldwide Safety Health, and of course Disney's Animal Kingdom, to sort of have an ad hoc creative engineering team to work on these problems. We have 4 to 6 projects in flight at any time. It's a multidisciplinary team, and when an engineer typically says that, we mean like mechanical, software, electrical. I mean, we have them too, but we also have like animal keepers and scientists and all that. So this is truly going well beyond. We have people figuring out the theming of what these things are going to look like. And my most recent project is one you might have seen on National Geographic's The Magic of Disney's Animal Kingdom, where we built a robotic ball that drives itself around our cheetah enclosures. It's in season 2, episode 8, Chilled Out Cheetah. I got that memorized, people keep asking. But we had this fun challenge of trying to get sustained locomotion out of our cheetah throughout the day. So we wanted to make a device that would autonomously move within their habitat. So it exists, it's in the park, which is really cool. We were actually doing a test with one yesterday as well. So it is an active project that we're continuing to work on. And we've had great success. The cheetahs love it. They find it very interesting because they're used to either a rabbit running across or something like that. But this is something that they can actually interact with. It's great for our guests. If you're on Kilimanjaro Safari, you can see the cheetahs up and around and actually moving, which is fantastic. But we want to take it one step further. Part of being in the zoological community is sharing and giving that back. And that's not typically something, you know, a for-profit company does, but in this case we have. So we have actually shared this project as part of the American Association of Zookeepers, and we gave a presentation paper, and I'm happy to share actually that just yesterday, it is now posted on github.com/Disney, such that you could make your own mini version of the ball, complete with the 3D printing files, the hardware, the instructions to assemble it, as well as the software code to actually build a drone for your cat at home, not for a real cheetah. But you can have a little mini version, totally sort of in that maker spirit. If you have a 3D printer, or you know someone who does, or you want to check out Maker Effects here in town, or Familab, they definitely have 3D printers. It's a hamster ball that you can get off Amazon, some motors, batteries, and an Arduino in there. And this is the same technology, and while it's great for our community, every zookeeper is really a maker at heart, and this is something that they can take to their zoos around the world and help improve the enrichment for all of the animals, not just cheetahs.
That's amazing, Andy. That's cool. Big round of applause, I think, for what they're doing over there, and Andy sharing all of that with all of us. So thank you very much. Does anybody have a cheetah at home? Need the full size? No? Okay. Oh, Dan has it. Okay. Oh, or you can use it for your children, right? If you don't have a cheetah or a cat, you just have your kids chase around. Okay, so let's just ask the other folks here too. Brandon, let's go to you. Favorite attraction that you've worked on or project?
Any project with Chris Priscilla is easy. No, it's I mean the one now will become eventually, but as of right now, my safe true answer is Trader Sam's of the Polynesian. I brought both of those from the drawing boards to opening day, both in Anaheim and Orlando, but Orlando's where I met my wife. Now we have a 9-month-old at home, so it's a very the best one.
Sure, but I know that you've got a lot of passion about
long hours, you know.
Let's bring it back home here, though. I know you've got a lot of passion about a project that you worked on for Universal Beijing Resort.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about
yeah, no,
that.
it's a crazy. Everybody in here will think I'm nuts. So when I was at WDI, it was wrapping up there, and they said, you know, we have the Star Wars thing coming up, and I was like, okay, yeah, Star Wars, that's pretty great. Meanwhile, Universal was like, you know, we're going to build another water world. Bye-bye, Star Wars. I'm going over here. Yeah, God, I love that show. Don't tell Disney, but we used to take lunch breaks at WDI and go to Universal Hollywood and just watch Waterworld. Frequently. But no, you look at that show. I mean, this was our 4th time building Waterworld around the parks. If you don't know, it was a movie long ago, starring Kevin Costner and Dennis Hopper. But it is an amazing live stunt show. It is the TIA Award legacy. It's an amazing show. But for me, as the prop master on that, it's an amazing opportunity because within that world of the polar ice caps melting and these atollers surviving, you can use any prop in the world to tell that story, and then to tie it. I see what you did here. To tie it into Maker Faire and making things. One of the most fun we had was taking regular everyday objects and then turning them into how the atollers would use them to survive. So we built a harpoon gun out of a crutch and an air tank and a golf club. We built, you know, a traffic signal and what they would use that for to survive. So it's very, very fascinating, and to tie it all in. But yeah, outside of personal reasons on the other one, yeah, Waterworld will, yeah. It's so good. It's so good. And nobody else was gonna, you know, fight me on it. So I was like, yes, it's mine. Go have fun with your Star Wars.
Thank you, Brandon. So Bill, talk to me a little bit about what has been your favorite attraction, or what we were talking backstage. We just remembered that we had worked on the Block Party Bash Parade together at the Disney Hollywood Studios, right, and even Beijing. But yeah, talk about what your favorite is.
I think at that time that was like the largest single unit parade float out there. It was huge. If you remember that, it had Mike Wazowski, animated character on the top of it, a bunch of animated doors. Incidentally, I watched your show in rehearsal probably 1,000 times. It was right next to KFP, so I was out there frequently. Not only does it, not to continue talking about this, but not only does it have the show, it also is its own land there, which has food and restaurant location there, retail. It's really cool.
Yeah, that was wild. They finally let us make like this tiny little Waterworld land. So there's a restaurant, there's some entertainment, and there's a queue that holds like 5,000 people. It's the biggest arena we've ever put it in. It's the first time we ever had a nighttime lighting program on the stage on purpose, not just some floodlights. So yeah, it's so good. Go to Beijing and see Waterworld. Go to Hollywood and see Waterworld.
All 10 of us fans of the show can get together afterwards.
No, it's all 10 of us fans of the movie, all of us fans of the Sun Show.
For us, I think my favorite project is always whatever the latest one is that we got to do. Getting to work on a Walt Disney original attraction with the Adventureland Treehouse of Disneyland was wonderful, dream come true, wonderful team for that, led by Kim Irvine, the creative side of WDI, who is just an incredible person to get to work with. We just opened in July the Warner Brothers Studio Tour Tokyo, the making of Harry Potter, for which we were able to do all of the animated characters and animated props. And you talk about how weird is your day, have a conference call at 3 a.m. on something and then go to site and program Aragog to come out and be scary.
What would you say is probably your most sort of maker type memory, the first sort of thing that you sat in your garage or your basement or your living kitchen table, whatever, right, and put something together? Does anything pop to mind for any of you guys?
Mine is probably Halloween costumes.
Okay.
Yeah, even to this day, I mean, we live in a great neighborhood with a ton of trick-or-treaters, so yeah, it's gone from just costumes to now in the garage building a walk-through haunted house to building all the lighting and the fog machines and all that. So yeah, that's kind of my most makery things. I certainly rely on people to do the big fancy stuff because the thing would be smoking in about 4 minutes if I tried to plug that in and figure that out. But yeah, I'm going to go with costuming and cosplay and textures and that sort of stuff is my earliest.
I think for me it was probably in high school the first time I poured a latex mask that I had sculpted and made the mold for and tried to mate it to an animated face that I had put together. And it dawned on me that there were all sorts of things that I had no idea were even a thing when it looked awful. The aha moment there, I guess, where you discover this entire microcosm of weird connection between something that's organic and pretty and something that's mechanical, about which I am by no means an expert. Our figure finishing team is incredible at that, working with silicone masks that have dozens and dozens of independent connections to a face that has, say, 40 independent functions in it or something like that. That's the real deal stuff, but I think all of us probably can relate to that when you discover something, I had never even considered this, and now it's this entire genre of new problems to solve.
Hey, before we move on, just quickly, if you don't mind, I know you're holding this bird. I want you to talk a little bit about what that is and how Garner Holt is related to all of that. Yeah.
It's unrelated, I just brought a bird.
As you do, right?
So a few years ago, we started a new company at Garner Holt Productions called Education Through Imagination. And our goal was to provide educational opportunities and products and services that would inspire makers to follow a theme park trajectory. From a selfish standpoint, it's really to try to give put new talent into our world because it's so weirdly esoteric. You think theme parks are niche, animatronics are the ultimate niche, because really nobody needs these. And so because of that, it's been a success in that we have maker spaces in schools through Southern California. We have some out here in Manatee County, and we call them animaker spaces. And they are a specially equipped room that is sort of a miniature version of our production studio that has 3D printers, vacuum formers, laser cutters, sticker machines, anything and everything that one would need to build an animatronic character in a limited form in schools, plus instruction that goes along with it. So this little guy is one of our new products. He's the GHP Songbird Mini, and this is something that every aspect of this, every bit of this that you see here is made in our makerspace. The body and the face are 3D printed. All of the rest of the frame down here is laser cut. Then you can paint it and make it look exactly like you want it to. It comes with a board that if you're feeling exotic and scientific enough, you can actually pop this stuff yourself. If not, it's an off-the-shelf thing, and then you can program it to audio and have a full little animatronic show. We're teaching elementary school students to do this. And since we've started this program, we've had tens of thousands of students go through it, and we hope we're making a difference. I mean, it's going to land.
I'm sure that you are. That's great stuff. I think we should give a round of applause for that. Thank you. Inspiring young people, and you're right, we need to find ways to engage, today's youth to embrace what it is that we do. We know that we've got a great big fan base out there, and we need to have that next generation of people who want to do what we do to deliver that amazing product for all of you to enjoy. So thank you very much for that. So to go back then, Andy, did you want to talk about your first kind of maker experience?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised this one hasn't come up yet among this group, but my first maker experience was actually in theater.
Okay.
So all the thespians, give a shout out there. So my high school and middle school, and all that, we did not have first programs. I changed that once I got a job and I could start sponsoring that. But we didn't have first programs. So I started off building the sets, rigging the lights, doing the sound design for my high school and middle school and high school. And that grew actually into doing it for local community theaters, to the point where I was doing typically 3 productions at a time, having one running, one in rehearsals, and one starting pre-production meetings. And I had a blast doing that. My brother got involved as well, but I remember going to school and bringing a bunch of tools. There was no shop at my school either. And after school, there's a nail gun hanging off my waist, and I'm climbing ladders, literally building the set. And the art teacher is supposed to be the one helping us, and she's looking at me like, how do you know how to do this? I was like, well, we did it for the last show. I could build a flat, yeah. So that was really my first, and what was super cool about it was that it was all driven by the creative side. And I think that value resonates in my career now. I mean, as an engineer in the themed entertainment industry, creative is king. We exist to make those dreams come true. And being in the technical theater side, when I was, a kid, I learned, oh man, we want to make this live show, we want to make it compelling, we want people to be engaged. So for me, learning that priority has helped me, in big derivatives in my career now.
Got everything?
I'm going to check my mic is on this time. All right. So,
Lesson learned.
I guess for me, I was just very fortunate. I had parents that they kind of made me do stuff that, I don't know, probably shouldn't make kids do, like change oil in cars and stuff like that. So I was, building computers when I was 6, 7 years old. My first computer was an IBM XT, if that dates me. But yeah, and I was so into that stuff. I just, came to the early realization that this entire world of technology we live in is basically a bunch of Lego blocks that are designed. If you understand what part does what, you can replace those parts. Go to AutoZone, get an alternator, you're done. So it's just, I kind of grew up in that environment, taking care of things, learning how to fix things, and really enjoyed it. So that's what led me to where I am right now. Just got into electronics with the school for it, and here we are. So.
Excellent. So you just talked a little bit about your roots, right? The first things that you did maybe that led you down this path. What advice might you have for anybody in the audience that wants to get into the world that we're in? What one sort of piece of advice would you give them to help them on that path? Brandon?
Really hoping I didn't have to go first.
For me, it's been, and it sounds ridiculous, but we've kind of touched on it, is just learn everything. Dabble in all sorts of stuff. Whether you'll find what you're good at, but don't be afraid of anything. Learn about, and I want to build one of those.
Be curious.
Yeah, be curious. Be curious about things. You know, build that. Try to build that. If you can't, okay, you can't. But if you can, awesome. You know, and then go to the next thing. Build a costume. Build a, you know, just learn everything, because you will hit a point in your career where you have to do everything. You will be the only, you know, one of 4 people on site at 3 a.m. The night before an attraction opens, and you should know how to do that, because it's gonna open at, you know, 9 a.m. Yeah, just do everything, do the work, you know, do it. Get your hands dirty. I mean, I love going to the shop and getting, you know, dirty with the wood and the paints and all that stuff. It's fun and it's great. And on top of that, just be kind. You know, I mean, this is a very small industry. You will not be able to avoid anyone. So just be nice, be kind, and do the work. Yeah.
So mine tie in really nicely to yours. So I've got 2 pieces of advice. One is figure out what drives you, what you enjoy. So that's one of the good reasons to do a bunch of stuff. The earlier you figure that out in your life, the better you're going to be. So figure out what drives you. The second piece of advice is networking. Get to know people. If you want to be in this industry, get to know the people in this industry. Come talk to us after this panel. Come to industry events. We have lots of mixers and shows that we get involved with. I'll talk about one here in a little bit. But get to know people, because not only will they will help you with that first piece of advice, which is finding what you're good at. It might give you opportunities to do that or talk about what it's like. But they'll also connect you with the right people, whether that's how to learn the things you want to learn, or how to get a job at the place you want to get a job. What is the place you want to get a job? What is the place to work that does what you want to do? So it's all about people, and we're a big industry, but people-wise, we're very small. We know each other. We know what each other's skills are, and we love to make those connections. So yeah.
I also have 2 pieces of advice along your lines. When I was in high school, I was given this one piece of advice, and I think it's paid dividends. Have fun. Above all else, just have fun. And figure out what your bliss is and just follow that. The second one, though, is for the more technical people in the room. Sometimes you feel like an odd man out when you're in a room of a whole bunch of creatives, because you think differently, and that's okay. And you're creative, but you're creative in a different way. You know, I creatively figured out how to make a ball roll, right? But that's different from the theming that gets put on the ball. That's different from the story that we're trying to tell. I would just recommend to those people that you are definitely needed in this industry, but be open-minded. Don't get so caught up in making it the absolute best or the absolute most efficient or whatever. We want it to be great, don't get us wrong. But don't forget, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is deliver happiness to someone. And you're trying to tell that story. So sometimes if you have to make a bodge fix on your, circuit board, or if you have to reprint something just to make it look, or function right, that's okay. Because really what matters is the guest being excited after they've experienced what you created.
My big one, I think, would be persistent. Never give up with something. Don't want to be the creative director right outside the gate. Be the project coordinator. You'll learn everything about every discipline, and that's a lot more valuable than coming in and having a top-level view early on. I think that's an aspect of this, even with something like this. We have 50 different career paths in our studio. They're represented by what's in here, and it's the same with any kind of a theme park attraction. The diversity of talents that's there is really incredible, and I think don't limit yourself to any one thing. Learn everything you can about all of it.
I mean, our industry requires all the talents that you see represented on this stage and more. None of these attractions, resorts, experiences that you go to are, driven by a singular person. It is the talents of many, many hundreds of people that help deliver them. So don't think that you're too small or you're not good enough. You keep working on it, keep pursuing those dreams and goals, and it's absolutely attainable, and we need you. So keep up that great exploration and learning.
So we're going to have about 10-15 minutes to take questions from the audience. Also, if you don't get your question answered now, they're in the front corner of the room. There's a little meet and greet area, and I know these guys have some things they can share with you, and you can ask them individual questions. So that will be up at the front of the room. But let's see if anybody in the audience has something that they want to ask our amazing panelists. Over here.
Don't be shy.
Hi, so I'm Haley. I'm currently a mechanical engineering student at UCF. I just wanted to ask, what's something that you've learned through experience, like in your work, that you would want to share with newer engineering students? Just something that you think they need to know going into it.
And, well, let's start with our engineering kind of focused folks first.
All right, I'll go first. Wow, where do you start with that one? I think, well, the reason why we do a senior project team at the end of an engineering curriculum is because you need a team that's going to watch your back. It doesn't matter how good you are at electronic design or mechanical design or whatever, you're going to make mistakes. And so it's good to have a team to watch your back, you know. In the electronics worlds, I'm sure we have this in other things too, but we do red line schematics. What that is you do the schematic for the circuit you're designing, but then you pass that schematic around to your colleagues and they look at it and they try to find mistakes and they mark it with a red pen. And by the time it makes it back around to you, you're not only going to have a better product, a better thing, you're going to learn a lot too. The next time you'll make less mistakes.
My advice would be, don't be so proud that you can't accept feedback. As an engineer, you've had your whole career being told how smart you are. And I can tell you that that is not helpful in the real world. Accepting that design feedback, when it doesn't work or when it doesn't create the exact effect that you want in the project, being able and being humble to say, you know, you're right, it isn't exactly that, I'll work on it. And you will win over many more people saying, I like your feedback, please tell me more, or you're right, how can I fix this? And asking them how to make it better. But that is probably the biggest piece of feedback, and that was a difficult one for me to overcome. So I recognize that's not an easy one.
I would say that is 1,000% true when you're the vendor too. Because if you're working for one of the big companies, the pride aspect you really get there. But speaking for the animatronics and show action equipment world specifically, simple is better. So anything that you can do to simplify a design and to make it so that it's easy to maintain, that's something that's bitten a lot of attractions in the past, where something is incredible, it's the coolest animatronic character you've ever seen, but it's impossible to maintain it because you have to get a helicopter to fly in to pull it apart and change the bearing out. That's a real thing, and consider that when you are designing.
All right,
Do we have other audience questions over here?
Terry Wells, what is one of the most biggest challenges that you have faced, and how did you overcome it?
Is this a job interview?
So one of ours, and this has a wonderful completion to the story, was we built a 42-foot tall animatronic dragon for Disneyland one time. And this entire character had to live in a space that was only about 30 feet tall. So it had to collapse into itself. It was fully animated, had a couple dozen independent functions on it, 2,500 PSI hydraulic, onboard special effects, projection, smoke, fire, animation, giant elevator that took it into Tom Sawyer's Island in a place that was visible to guests all day long, but they had no idea it was there, sort of a missile silo there. So trying to figure out all those things with all these constraints, creatively, spatially, mechanically, controls-wise, P.S. there's performers all over the place around this thing all the time. Probably the biggest challenge. The way it resolved itself was it burned up in front of 10,000 people earlier this year. So, might I add, 14 years after we had installed it and 13 years after the warranty expired. So.
I was going to say, but that had nothing to do with the fine people at Garner Holt Productions.
Accurate comment plus P.S. What's the coolest way for a fire-breathing dragon to go out of the world?
Absolutely. I was going to say something, but I don't think I can top that. So there you go. We have another question?
Hi, my name's Anthony. I do IT and digital media on the side. So my wife accuses me of having too many hobbies. And my two-part question for you is, how much of your work bleeds over to your personal life? And how do you handle that with your significant other and your family dealing with it?
Okay, my wife.
So here's what we,
Is this being
meet me
recorded?
after the show.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not.
My wife is in the second row laughing pretty hard right now. I did a whole light show for Halloween. That's kind of like taking work home. Yeah, it is a lifestyle, I think.
I think it's fair to say that all of us are sitting where we are right now because we're in love with this industry, right? It's a passion for all of us. And so, yeah, it's with you all the time. I mean, I am not the electronics maker or the engineer that these folks are, but you know, every family vacation, we're going to a theme park. It's just going to happen. So my wife has learned to love it.
For me, I'm very fortunate. I actually met my wife through the TEA. So she's all about it. In fact, she's more of a theme park nerd than I am, so I'm trying to keep up. So yeah, she obviously supports what we do. She knows when I work the late nights, she knows what's going on. So as far as how does my maker side kind of bleed into other things, I do bring it home. I do like to do some electronic projects at home. So my most recent one was, I'm big into electric motorcycles, kind of my thing. And I have one that just wasn't charging fast enough for me, so I invented a dual charging system. I can plug into 2 charging stations and charge twice as fast. As you do.
So just to answer that, my dad was in the Air Force for 39 years. For much of that, he was on active duty flying status, so he was gone a lot. And I used to, I remember he would ask my parents, you know, how do you deal with that? How do you stay married there when dad's gone 60% of the time? Now, as a grown-up and experiencing something similar where I'm gone a lot to oversee theme park installations and even stuff that's down in Anaheim, 45 minutes from our studio, you're still gone a lot. I have since come to realize that it is because you are gone that much that the relationship works.
And on that, I think we can wrap it up, right? I mean, come on. How do you do that? Okay, please, let's give a warm round of applause for Andy Maluzzi, Bill Butler, Scott Hartnett, and Mr. Blue Loop, Brandon Wiley. Hey, if you guys don't mind, I think we're gonna turn our backs to for a second. We're gonna get a selfie together with all of you guys in the background. Is that all right? You guys mind if we try?